name's Tristan Justice, and I'm a Western correspondent for the Federalist based in Denver. Joining me today is Colorado Congressman Ken Buck. Congressman, how are you doing?
Great, thank you, Tristan.
So I want to talk today about some of the Hunter Biden stuff that's come out this week and some stuff that you've proposed. You've proposed a special counsel being launched by the Justice Department to investigate Hunter Biden and his overseas business dealings. We've had a three-year special Senate probe led by Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, and we've had an ongoing FBI probe. Why have a special counsel now?
Well, we need a special counsel because there was a cloud hanging over a potential Biden presidency, and the Biden administration likely won't appoint a special counsel. And this special counsel will continue the work of the FBI and Justice Department to look into what are very serious allegations, much more serious, frankly, than the allegations involving impeachment. And the real problem is that when President Trump asked the Ukraine government for cooperation to look into some of these very allegations, it became an impeachable offense and really put a wet blanket on any effort of this administration to achieve justice.
So this special counsel investigation, it's likely to draw some parallels to the special counsel that was launched under Trump. I imagine opponents of this thing are probably going to charge it with being like a witch hunt. They're going to say there's no need for it. What are some of the differences between the special counsel that you're pushing for Hunter Biden compared to the special counsel that was launched under Trump?
Well, the special counsel that was launched under Trump is really a fascinating story because you had the Democrat Party, Hillary Clinton's campaign, engage a private law firm to engage an investigator to create a false dossier and submit that false dossier to a FISA court under penalties of perjury. And based on that dossier, they received certain abilities to wiretap and surveil American citizens that were working on a presidential campaign. And they tried to link the presidential campaign to Russian efforts that would influence the election. The result of the Mueller investigation showed that there was no link between the Russian efforts and the Trump campaign. And therefore, no charges were recommended by the special counsel. In this case, you have direct evidence that Hunter Biden has received payments, and some of them outrageous payments, $3.5 million from the former mayor of Moscow's wife, and $83,000 a month from a corrupt oligarch in Ukraine with the company Burisma, just 2 days after a board member from Burisma met with Joe Biden in the White House. Then you have Hunter Biden on a plane with Air Force Two with his father, the vice president, going to Red China and actually engaging in conversations with government officials and government-owned banks, and 12 days later, setting up an investment firm with the Chinese. So it's clear that Joe Biden and Hunter Biden have used Joe Biden's position in government for financial gain. What's not clear is exactly the extent to which Joe Biden knew about Hunter Biden's activities.
So you brought up that transaction, that $3.5 million from the Moscow mayor's wife to Hunter Biden. To me, it seems like we've learned so much about so many different, we've learned about the existence of so many transactions in the last year, especially from that Senate report, but we don't know a lot about these transactions still. And my question here is, just like that transaction, we only know that it exists from the Senate report, but there's still so many circumstances that we don't know about it. What do you expect the special counsel to find in that regard?
Well, I don't know what they're going to find, but that's really the key. The key is that the first special counsel, the Mueller investigation, cleared the President of the United States and allowed the president to govern with the confidence of the American people. This investigation can clear Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, or it may recommend prosecution of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden after he gets out of the White House, if in fact he gets into the White House. And so I think it's important that folks understand that investigation doesn't draw conclusions before it starts. It draws conclusions based on the evidence that's obtained during the investigation. And it may draw a conclusion that clears somebody or that recommends prosecution. And both of those are really important conclusions for the American people.
Are you worried that the FBI investigation won't be sufficient? Are you worried that the current FBI investigation isn't broad enough?
No, I'm not worried about that at all. I think if a special counsel is appointed, the current FBI investigation will merge with the special counsel's office, and it will move more quickly to a resolution.
And are you worried about a potential President Biden potentially impeding the work of these investigations and shutting them down?
Well, I hope he wouldn't. He keeps talking about unity and how important it is to unify Americans. And I think this is one action that would, in fact, unify Americans, is to be transparent and to make sure the American people know what was going on during the Obama administration.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the big tech censorship of these stories. In October, as soon as the New York Post got its hand on this laptop, this Delaware laptop that it obtained, that was also given to law enforcement, by the way, as soon as these stories started to come out, you saw Facebook and Twitter within minutes shutting down these stories on their platforms. And it was just another case of a 2-year battle where these companies just kept censoring and censoring and censoring anything conservative. There was a Media Research Center study that came out a few days before the election. Donald Trump and his affiliate campaign accounts were censored 65 times in 2 years before the election, and neither censored Joe Biden once, according to the study. And we saw this really play out even censoring these news stories. Do you think that this censorship is just going to lead to more consequences for these big tech companies?
I do. I think it should lead to consequences. I think the American people are smart. I respect the American people, their ability to look at various pieces of information and draw conclusions. When big tech censors certain types of information and promotes other types of information, they are trying to manipulate the public opinion. And I think that is fundamentally wrong to have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 corporations in America that have so much power over public opinion in America. We know that Google changed its algorithms 6 months before the election. We know that those algorithms discriminated against conservative views. And we know that Facebook and Twitter were engaged in censoring right up through the election. So yes, I think that people are fed up with giving up their privacy rights, with having public opinion manipulated, and having so much control in the hands of just a few corporations.
Would you consider Facebook and Twitter by now publications?
I think they're a publication. I think they're a monopoly. I think that what we're doing goes far beyond a bulletin board and really involves the content of the speech. There's a great dissenting opinion, and it's a dissenting opinion in the Second Circuit that talks about what these companies have done goes beyond Section 230 and really is not covered and not immunized by Section 230.
Do you think this censorship in October, because the way it came out and the excuses for it just became so blatantly obvious that these platforms are really just trying to suppress information for their preferred candidate, do you think it really impacted their credibility as objective websites?
Well, I don't know if they have any credibility, frankly. They certainly don't have credibility with knowledgeable conservatives, and I don't think they pretend. The critical piece here is that there is no other place to go. And as they continue to gather more and more information, they continue to bankrupt newspapers and other forms of information dissemination around the country. And in acting in the way that they're acting is wrong. We need to have 5 Googles. We need to have 10 Facebooks. We need to have 15 Twitters. And so people can go to the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and get their information and hopefully go to both and be able to compare information and make good decisions.
You've been one of the most vocal people on Capitol Hill about this issue, about big tech censorship and big tech monopolies. But Have you seen after the October censorship of Hunter Biden and stuff? Do you see a bigger appetite among your colleagues to regulate big tech?
Um, I, I think that Republicans and Democrats see the need to deal with the size and scope of the monopolies that are involved, sometimes for different reasons. But yes, I see an appetite among all my colleagues to deal with this issue in the next Congress.
Do you think legislation will come next year, or do you think it'll come the year after? Are you worried that like divided government might impede this? Because even though both parties tend to agree that something needs to be done, there seems to be a difference of opinion as to what the exact issues are, and that sounds like this seems to be blocking some progress among some of these issues on Capitol Hill.
I think that there is likely to be antitrust legislation in 2021. I don't think it stops there. I think there will be a series of bills that will be offered, debated, passed, and some rejected over the next 4 or 5 years, because this has become such an important issue to both sides of the aisle.
Mm. Now I want to pivot to Georgia a little bit and talk about these upcoming elections. You're going to Georgia tomorrow, I understand, right, to campaign for Senators Loeffler and Perdue. What's at stake in these upcoming runoffs?
I think it's critically important for the people of Georgia and the people of America to understand that Nancy Pelosi's radical agenda the last 2 years, the agenda that was clearly rejected by the voters in November, is going to be on the ballot in Georgia. If we don't have a Republican Senate that is a firewall against these radical proposals, you're going to see the Green New Deal passed in the House, and then in the Senate, you're going to see the other radical areas. This idea that we're going to have guaranteed jobs for every American. We're not going to have a country where people compete and try to outdo each other and create a better economy. We're going to have people that are guaranteed a check from the United States government, and that is there are many critical issues that are involved in this. They've talked about Medicare for all. They've talked about gun legislation that restricts our gun rights, and the folks in Georgia really have the decision to make whether the Senate will work with the House and pass reasonable legislation and send it to President Biden, or whether the Senate will be a Democrat Senate under the leadership of Chuck Schumer, who has talked about doing away with the filibuster and the 60-vote rule and allowing pieces of legislation to go from the House straight through the Senate and signed by the president that are really radical.
Do you worry that Joe Biden's going to govern as a radical president?
I think if you look at his appointments, he's going to govern as a radical president, yes.
And do you worry that Senate Democrats are going to pack the court?
I don't know that they even have a unanimous vote within their own conference at this point. So I think that there are some common sense Democrats, not many, but some, like Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who has talked about the fact that he would not be in favor of doing that. So if the Senate Republicans take over, it certainly won't happen. But if the Senate Democrats take over, I hope that Chuck Schumer's wildest dreams of making the District of Columbia a state and packing the court don't come true.
Mm. Now, to talk about election fraud a little bit, Georgia seems to be one of the states out of all of them that the Trump campaign has launched litigation on. It appears to be the most likely to have some serious issues of voter fraud that might have actually changed the outcome. The race was decided by less than 13,000 votes, and the Trump campaign released its lawsuit this week, actually, making allegations that there were just tens of thousands of fraudulent votes that were cast illegally or even just made up by underage voters. Do you worry that Georgia could have serious voter fraud issues in these upcoming runoffs?
Oh, I worry very much about that. And what I don't know the details in Georgia, but I do know that just the distraction voter fraud in the presidential race is taking away from the effort to get out the vote in the Senate races and the special election. And so I think it's critical that the folks in Georgia are able to focus on making sure that every vote is cast in the Senate races, so that the two candidates who clearly led, Senators Loeffler and Perdue, can win those races and get to Washington, D.C. and roll up their sleeves and get some work done.
Do you support the idea of a special counsel appointed to investigate voter fraud?
I think that voter fraud should be investigated by Congress, and I think it can be investigated by Congress.